Yeah.
And then Julie wants to know, what would you say are the 3 most important training tips for someone bringing home a new puppy?
I don't
There's
even
so
know.
many, right?
Yeah, 3. I mean, I think without getting into training detail, the very first one would be to, to set their expectations, like we talked earlier, from the very beginning. Bringing a new puppy home, and the first day everybody is like, oh, everything he's doing is super cute. He's nipping, it's so cute. Oh, he had an accident. That's okay. Setting up these expectations from day one, putting him in the crate from day one, letting him have some time in there is what you're going, that sets him up for the future, because it's easier to train a puppy than it is to break a bad habit. And especially now, which it's so hard because everybody's home now.
Mm-hmm.
And they're bringing puppies home, and they don't necessarily need to be in a crate, or they're not locked up during the day. All these things are not happening.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard to, you're kind of like, you're playing a guessing game, because people don't know how long they're going to be home. Mm-hmm. And they could be home for another month. But at that point, you have a puppy who's never been in a crate, who has been outside every hour. And then it's like, okay, well, now you're in a crate for 4 hours, and then the dog walker's going to come and you're in for 4 more hours. Mm-hmm. So you kind of have to, that's one of the biggest things with setting up the expectations now, is getting that schedule set up, knowing that you are going to return to, a normal schedule, whatever that schedule is for people. Yeah, I mean, and that would be like, there's really not, I don't really think there's 3 things to say about bringing a puppy home, other than maybe be prepared. Mm-hmm. You want to make sure you have everything that you need. Mm-hmm. Your crate and your food and your bowls and some toys, lots of different toys. Mm-hmm.
Knowing where they're going to probably keep them in the house. I have a plan, I suppose. So that's part of the being prepared. So
yeah. Because once you, and then I guess really making sure that the entire family is on board and ready to accept the responsibility of the puppy, because it takes everybody in the house to deal with the puppy. They're like a ton of work. They are constantly need something, and it just pottying them alone, you could have the whole family taking turns pottying the puppy. So I guess they would probably be the 3 things, like setting your expectations, mm-hmm. having a plan and making sure that you have everything you need, and then the whole family being on board. Right. All the other stuff, like the training thing, comes along after the fact,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So then there's some questions on feeding and exercise guidelines. So I know you are pretty knowledgeable with canine nutrition. I mean, a lot of it is on the dog food bags, but sometimes that's not even accurate.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it really depends on what you're feeding. Mm-hmm. Most of the puppies, a lot of the puppies, say from CrossFit, are coming home on TLC. Right. It's a great dog food. So following the guidelines on the back of the bag you don't have to worry about it. You can follow the guidelines. And then you just gauge the puppy as the puppy starts growing. As they start to gain weight, you're going to up their food a little bit. But there's lots of different ideas about dog food in general, what's good, what's not good. Mm-hmm. Lots of different studies. There's all these different things about food. Right. So the TLC is great for those puppies. If you're feeding a lesser quality food, that's when it kind of gets hairy, because the back of the dog food bag is going to tell you to feed double or triple of what your dog needs.
Right.
So, I mean, in the long run, you're not really saving anything by feeding a lesser quality food. Feeding a high quality food, you're going to feed less of than your lower quality food. So it equals out to be the same overall, as long as like the bag lasts you. Another big thing with that is a lot of times puppies come home and that transition causes a lot of anxiety. Anxiety causes GI upset. GI upset is diarrhea.
Right.
Our favorite of is diarrhea. Mm. So the biggest thing for that is just knowing that it's a possibility, expecting that it's going to come. What I generally do is I start puppies on pumpkin immediately. From day one, that way I can combat. Well, preemptively combat diarrhea before it starts.
Right.
That's the number one thing, is starting pumpkin. So if people don't know what that is, it comes in a can. It's 100% pure pumpkin. It's usually in the baking aisle. Make sure it's not pumpkin filling, but it's pure pumpkin. So, I mean, that's probably a big one too, is knowing that that's probably going to happen. And even if it doesn't, giving pumpkin for the first few days isn't going to harm the puppy. So you might as well just do it preemptively, then combat diarrhea after the fact. But yeah, feeding a high quality food, you don't have to worry about feeding quantity, because the back of the bag is going to give you an accurate amount.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's true. And then we were talking about the fitness and exercise for puppies. I think a lot of people are under the impression, a tired puppy is a good puppy and well-behaved, but a lot of times they're overdoing it with them. They don't need a whole lot of, hiking and long walks around. So I have this resource from Puppy Culture, if you remember.
Yep.
So she has some guidelines in there. I mean, all this depends on the breed, and there's all kinds of things, but she suggests between an 8 to 12 week old pup should be doing a walk of 50 to 200 feet at a time with a little meandering mixed in. So that's not all that much. And then 4 to 6 months, 200 to 400 feet at a time, and the puppy will give you a cue whether he wants to stop or continue. So that was, it would probably be surprising to a lot of people that it's not a big giant walk.
Yep. Yeah. And of course it depends on the breed. I mean, if you have a small breed dog, the amount of exercise that they're going to need is going to be a lot less. The distance of exercise is going to be a lot less than if you were to have a shepherd puppy, a Malinois puppy, a husky puppy. Right. These high energy working dogs, as a puppy, they are going to require a longer period of time of exercise. The biggest thing to know about that is that exercise should happen on something that is a surface that has some give to it. Grass is probably the number one, because a prolonged exercise on a hard surface like concrete, pavement, anything that doesn't have any give is definitely it will cause long-term issues through, in the joints of the puppy.
Right. The growth plates, right? Is that what we're talking about?
Yes. There's all kinds of things that occur from that. Like, pano is a big one in large breed puppies. So you want to make sure that you're exercising on a surface that has some give, which is, like I said, generally grass. Everybody has access to grass.
Right.
So if you want to work out in the field, you want to exercise that way, in your yard. I mean, you don't even have to leave your house. But yeah, they don't need a ton. Puppies, between 8 and 12 weeks, they eat, they play, and they sleep. And play is short. It doesn't last very long. And it's basically the same with exercise. They're going to exercise primarily the amount of time they need.
Something here that had a good guideline for the timing. 8 weeks, so 3 hours of rest to 1 hour of play. 3 months, 2 hours of rest to 1 hour of play, and then 4 months, 1 hour of rest to 1 hour of play. And so this person just subtracts an hour every month. Rest to play. So
yeah, that's actually a really good correlation. Yeah, because you always hear about crate training. They can hold it for 1 hour for the amount of months they are. So if they're doing that with fitness, that's awesome correlation. I like that chart a lot. It's easily explainable.
Right.
Yeah, they really don't. Like exercise, it's not, and I don't think that takes place. The tired dog is a good dog until they probably reach maturity. Yeah. Because, and at that case, it is true. A tired dog is a good dog because it's well exercised.
Right.
And at that point, they can handle, a longer period of time to exercise. So, but in puppies, it's not necessarily needed.
Right. Just some play. Yeah, right. Yeah. They just need to play and a little bit of walking and stuff like that. They're pretty easygoing.
Yep.
So separation anxiety, which is huge right now, we talked about it a little bit because everybody's home all the time, and then it's going to just switch. So, I mean, I'm assuming with this, crate training is going to be imperative. Get these puppies used to it early.
Yeah. Yeah, that is going to be huge with, like I said, everybody's at home. And you're at home from day one with your puppy, and they haven't had an opportunity to self-soothe. Like, there are all these things that generally take place in a normal schedule aren't happening. So, like I said, setting up that expectation from the beginning, starting to utilize the crate during the day, giving them an hour, giving them 2 hours in the crate at a time, and letting them learn to self-soothe and be by themselves and, amuse themselves. Because there's not always going to be somebody there who's ready to play. So that's definitely, it's going to be a hard one for a lot of dogs in the future, and adult dogs too. I mean, you're generally not crate training your adult dogs. They've already been there, done that. Now they have you at home.
Right.
So we're going to see a lot of separation anxiety take place in adult dogs as people start going back to work, because it's going to be a sudden change. And that dogs, they live in the moment. They know that you're home and now tomorrow you're not.
Right.
So yeah, and the separation anxiety, there's lots of different things that we can do to combat that. You can start by giving them time alone. Even with adult dogs, you can give them time alone. Let them go into another room, or you can take a walk without them. Anything that gives them just that a little bit of time to be separated is better than giving them no time to be separated. And then again, once, that's definitely, if separation anxiety is a big issue, it's definitely something to reach out to a professional about. There's lots of different things we can do for separation anxiety, but you trying to just say, well, I'm going to lock the dog in a room and then I'm going to go to work, it's going to be fine, is not the way to fix it.
Right.
And
it can build up on itself, and then the dog can end up damaging the house, hurting itself. So, yeah.
Cause tons of anxiety, and like we just said with puppies, anxiety causes GI issues. GI issues in adult dogs can then start breaking down other areas of the body, and you don't really want to do that. On top of behavioral, you're hitting like the medical aspect of it now. So but just setting up the expectations, if we're talking puppies from day one, and giving them time alone is definitely going to be key in making sure that separation anxiety isn't an issue as these next few months.
Right. So let's avoid it to begin with.
Yeah.
And then also, how about introducing a new puppy to your current dog that you have in the house? I'm sure you have to do that every time you bring a puppy in to train. You've got dogs there, so you have to introduce them. So how does that look like in your house?
So it depends on the puppy. I would say, for the most part, puppies that are coming in they have a couple of days to decompress before I start introducing them to my adult dogs. That way they get the lay of the land, they understand what's happening, who we are, and then we start introducing them to the other dogs. In my house, I have my adult pit bull and then my 3 little dogs. They generally meet my old guy from day one because he's very non-mobile and highly tolerant. So it's not really like there is an introduction happening. It's the younger, smaller dogs that there's an introduction. So once they decompress, I introduce them one at a time. If you don't have full control over your other dog, where you can't give the verbal commands and they listen to that 100% of the time, then I would do it on a leash. So that way you can control the dog, because the first interaction is really setting the standard for your household. Anything negative that happens to a puppy is something that it's a longer lasting impression of that situation. So keeping them on a leash will be key. And then, you just slowly introduce them. I would do it outside of the house. Take them for a little walk. Puppy, you can just do it in your yard. If you're just walking around in your yard, just let them start to integrate with each other in a neutral or more neutral area, because we can't really do it, that neutral, and then gauge the reaction. Sometimes an adult dog isn't so accepting of the puppy right away. In that case, you kind of have to set it up where, you know, and I use a gate here. So I slowly introduce them through a gate. So they live separately through a gate until they become more comfortable and accepting. And then they start having short periods of time out together. And then I gauge how that short period of time is happening to then start lengthening the duration of it.
Mm-hmm.
But it really
always supervised, you know, with the puppies.
Exactly. Yeah. It depends on the puppy, and some puppies don't need that decompressing time. Some are very outgoing,
Right.
or highly social and highly accepting, and they just walk into a house and they're like, "I'm here," you know. Yep. And they're fine. Some are kind of like, what is happening, and who are all these dogs, and what are they doing? So that's the kind of puppy that kind of needs that little bit of extra time to start to get more comfortable, more trusting. You know, building a trust is key, so that they know that they're in a safe environment before introducing lots of other dogs.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, in my case, I have 4, so it's definitely harder than it would be if you just have one dog, or one older dog, or one highly social dog. I think really the key would be if you have a dog that you're unsure of. If you have a dog who is kind of iffy around other dogs and you want to introduce a new dog, that's probably when you want to ask for some advice and have somebody come in and help you do that introduction, because especially with a puppy, there's lots of things, there are lots of behaviors that take place by a negative situation that happens.
Right. And then, like you said, it impacts them for a much longer time, the puppies. So we want to make sure that we start them off right.
Yep. Yeah.
Relationship.
Yeah.
Okay, we covered a lot of questions.
I know.
So thank you so much for doing this with me and giving us all this valuable advice. And I hope everyone watching found it helpful.
Yeah.
And please look for a trainer if you're feeling overwhelmed with your puppy or dog. And it's easier to start with good behaviors than to try and undo learned unwanted behaviors. So we're here to help. I'm in the Upper Bucks area, and Val is in Lower Bucks. So we'll put our contact information in the description. And Val, do you have anything else you'd like to say?
No, I think we covered a lot. Okay. Puppies are hard. You know, I think that's the big one, is everybody needs to understand that if you're not, this isn't new. We know that puppies are hard, and it can be very daunting, and you feel like you made progress, and then the next day you're like, what happened? You know, I mean, it is what it is. Right. So just persevere through that puppy stage, and you'll come out on the other side like everybody else did with a good dog. Putting the work in is key.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for watching. We'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye.